Section 2.2.2 Quality Assurance. Responsibility for complying with this section lies with manufacturers, packagers, labelers, importers, and distributors. The requirement is that you have a qualified QA person who's responsible for assuring product quality before it's made available for sale. That is a pre-sale responsibility. The QA person will also investigate complaints and approve disposition of returned products. Those are post-sale responsibilities. We would like to emphasize something at this point. There are quality assurance job descriptions that say, QA is responsible for ensuring that product gets released for sale. That is not a QA's responsibility. This is a conflict of interest. QA is responsible for ensuring that product conforms to specification and regulatory requirements, and that product that does not meet these requirements does not get released for sale. A lot of companies still do not fully understand the role of QA. Therefore, it's important to have these duties laid out clearly in the job description. What exactly is the role of QA? The QA person must approve or reject all formulations, procedures, specifications, test methods, controls, and results that affect product quality. They must approve or reject the use of all raw materials or packaging materials based on conformance with specifications. The current NHP guidelines are not explicit as to what should be covered by raw material and packaging material specifications the way they are with finished product specifications. We therefore recommend that you start with supplier specifications. Next, decide if any additional testing was committed to when you filed your product license application. For example, if you said that pesticide testing will not be done on the finished product, but that it's going to be conducted at the raw material stage. Finally, decide if any additional tests are needed for your particular product. For example, if you're dissolving a powder in a liquid, then particle size may not be an issue. But if you're encapsulating the powder, then particle size of the raw material may be important for ensuring good flow properties. The QA person must also approve or reject all finished products against the completed batch record and based on conformance with specifications prior to release for sale. Just to emphasize the importance of this point, some of you may recall the Salmonella outbreak from a while back that resulted in the recall of several food and natural health products. Before you is a newspaper article that covered this incident. The second-to-last paragraph gives the reason for the recall and states that the inspectors found evidence of peanut products that were shipped after the receipt of a positive lab test result for Salmonella and prior to the receipt of a negative lab result. Here is a case of the product being shipped before QA confirmed that specifications were met, and the result was a highly publicized recall. The QA person must also approve or reject all product deviations or product reprocessing. We'll talk more on that later. Which of these QA responsibilities apply will depend on the actual activity done at the site. If you're an importer, obviously you're not going to approve raw materials for use in a batch. Therefore, you should review the GMP requirements as they pertain to the QA person and decide what applies to your particular site. The QA person, however, regardless of the site, must also approve or reject the resale of product subsequently returned to the facility. Some items to consider when making this decision are the reason for the return. For example, was the product shipped to the wrong place? Or was it returned due to a complaint about the quality? The condition of the returned product, including the packaging or labeling. Is there damage to the product, or are the seals of the packaging broken? The handling and storage condition of the product when off-site. Was it properly stored? Or was it potentially kept under conditions that would have adversely affected the product? The time left before the expiration date should be checked. There's probably no point in restocking the product if there are only 2 weeks left in the shelf life. The QA person is also responsible for ensuring that laboratories, in-house and contract, can perform their tasks and responsibilities. We could spend an entire session just discussing how to evaluate a lab, but here are just a few points to consider. You should ask yourself, does the lab have the necessary equipment and instruments? If your specifications call for HPLC, is the lab set up for this? Do they have the required staff expertise, training, and experience? Are the staff qualified to do this type of testing? What is the history of this lab? This would apply mainly to contract labs. How long has the lab been in business? And have they done your type of testing in the past? Is the lab accredited by a third party in any way? Labs are not required to hold a site license under the NHP regulations. They do need an establishment license under the drug regulations. You should therefore ask your lab if they have an EL or some other type of accreditation. For example, SCC or ISO. Finally, consider actually auditing the labs. As a minimum, your contract with them should give you the option of auditing and keep records of all of the above. One other item you should consider, although it's not listed on your screen, are laboratory turnaround times. While this is not addressed in the GMPs, it is important to know how fast your lab can get you the test results in order that you can organize and coordinate your product release schedule. Another responsibility of QA is to record and investigate all complaints. Let's look at these separately. First, recording a complaint. When recording a complaint, you should include the following information: the date of the complaint, name and lot number or lot numbers of the product, the details of the nature of the complaint, the source of the complaint, that is, the name of the individual and their location, and any initial instructions given to the complainant. For example, were they told to return the product? Record all complaints, no matter how mundane, even if it's a repeat complaint, even if you've received the same complaint in the past. Next, investigate the complaint according to a standard operating procedure, or SOP. You should determine the root causes of the complaint. For example, if somebody contacts you and says the product tastes terrible, you should look into the matter. Perhaps after investigating, you'll discover that this product was for diaper rash. You may wonder, why in the world is this person ingesting it? At which point, you should look at the labels. Was the product labeled correctly? If you're getting repeat complaints in such a case, you would then perhaps want to look at the sales or marketing literature and look at what the salespeople are telling consumers about this particular product. Another example would be if the customer were to complain that the tablets in a bottle were all broken up or fragmented. In that case, you should determine how widespread the problem is. Is it just one client complaining? Is it just one shipment? Is it one lot? Is the problem occurring over several lots? Then you would ask questions like, is this a handling issue? If the problem is confined to one shipment, it probably is. Perhaps UPS dropped the box. Is it a formulation issue? For example, maybe not enough binder, or the wrong binder was added. Is it a blending issue? Perhaps too much or too little of a particular ingredient was added. Is it a tablet compression issue? Perhaps the tablet press was not working properly or was not operated properly. Next, you would identify any corrective actions needed and who was responsible for implementation. If it were an equipment issue, then you would fix the equipment. If it was worker error, then you would retrain the worker. Meanwhile, you would do a stock recovery of all affected product. You would then identify any preventative actions needed and who was responsible for implementation. An example of a preventative action would be to introduce a friability test to the finished product specifications. Set the deadlines for resolution, and follow up to ensure that the corrective preventative actions are implemented. Again, always keep written records. You can bet that an auditor visiting your site will ask to see your complaint files.